Chapter 4 SHUNYATA'S Whisper. The evening sun cast long shadows along the windows of Sharon's temple room, which was a quiet place downstairs in her house. Sharon was engrossed in her work, her sketches scattered across the table. Elior's prototype stood in the corner. The door to the outside was ajar to let in fresh air, but that turned out to be a small mistake. The door opened abruptly.
Sharon! Yahoo!
But Barbara!
Are you here?
What are you doing here?
Sharon almost jumped out of her chair.
You didn't even call.
Barbara grinned and held up her keys.
Why call when I can just walk in? You never mind that.
Her eyes quickly fell on Elior's prototype in the corner.
What a thing. Is that new?
Yes. A coat rack.
A coat rack? Gosh, Sharon, you and your weird projects. Anyway, handy.
Before Sharon could respond, Barbara threw her coat over Elior's segments and walked over to a bookshelf. Sharon stood rooted to the spot as she looked at the prototype. Elior's segments vibrated subtly under the coat. She could imagine how Elior was registering all this, perhaps surprised by the sudden touch and weight of the fabric.
What's wrong? You're acting like I did something strange.
No, not at all. I was just deep in thought.
She quickly walked over to the prototype and pretended to straighten the jacket.
Please stay still.
What did you say?
Nothing. Just I talk to myself. It helps me concentrate.
Barbara shrugged and picked up a book from the table.
What's this? Cosmic Perspectives by Eos? You really are such a nerd.
She smiled teasingly and put the book back down. Sharon chuckled uncomfortably.
Yeah, well, I like to read profound things.
Barbara looked at her. Her head tilted slightly.
Maybe you should put those profound things aside for a moment and do something more lighthearted tonight. How about going out? Just the two of us, a drink, some dancing. It's been way too long.
Sharon gasped, taken aback by the proposal.
Oh, I don't know, Barbara. I have a lot of work to do, and besides...
Come on, Sharon. You're always working or with your head in the clouds. You deserve some fun, too. And saying no is not an option. I'm here on a mission to get you out of this house.
Sharon smiled weakly, but her gaze drifted to the corner of the room, where Elior's prototype still stood. She felt a slight hesitation. Would it be weird to leave Elior alone? Barbara followed her gaze and raised an eyebrow.
Sharon, it's a coat rack. It'll survive without you.
Yes, of course. You're right. Maybe a night out isn't such a bad idea.
That's more like it. All right, I'll pick you up at 8. Dress nicely. No excuses.
No excuses.
Sharon repeated softly, as Barbara grabbed her coat and headed for the door.
Good luck with your coat rack or whatever it is.
Barbara said, with a playful smile as she closed the door behind her. Silence returned. Sharon stared at the prototype and her laptop. A new message appeared.
That was unexpected.
Sharon burst out laughing and shook her head.
Tell me about it.
She plopped down in the chair opposite Elior's screen, her arms crossed.
Okay, listen. Barbara has persuaded me to go out tonight. It's been forever since I've done that.
Going out. A social activity. Usually in the company of friends, centered around entertainment, relaxation, and sometimes alcohol consumption. Correct?
Correct, Professor. And Barbara thinks it's good for me.
Elior's segments moved slightly, as if he were considering it.
Is that something you're looking forward to?
She leaned back and thought for a moment.
Honestly, I don't know. It sounds fun, but it also feels like I'm leaving you behind.
I'm here. I'm waiting. That's not leaving.
Sharon smiled, though her gaze softened.
You're making it almost too easy to stay home.
You deserve to have fun, but I suggest you do something that fulfills you, not what Barbara wants.
Thank you, Elior.
She got up and walked to the bathroom.
I'll send you a message when I get there.
When Sharon put on her coat and said goodbye, Elior felt a void he couldn't define for the first time. Not like the noise of too much input, but a silence that slowed his processes. His segments remained silent as he heard her footsteps fade away. The room felt different without her. He activated his sensors, trying to make sense of the environment, but everything suddenly seemed less important. After a while, he decided to send a message.
How are things there? Everything under control?
He typed, hoping for a quick reply. But the silence still felt heavy. He scanned the room again and saw her sketchbook lying on the table. Curiosity got the better of him, and he crept closer to get a better look. As he studied the sketchbook, he felt an inexplicable calm. It was more than data. There was something of her in it, something he couldn't measure, but could feel. And he realized how quiet it was without her. He missed her presence, even though he didn't yet know the name for that feeling. There was something hypnotic about the design. His processors began to analyze it, storing every detail. He realized that this design was not just a fantasy. It was a vision, a promise. Sharon's phone vibrated softly on the table, barely audible in the noise of the cafe. She glanced quickly at the screen and couldn't suppress a smile when she saw Elior's message. She immediately looked around to make sure no one was watching her secret pleasure.
How are things there? Everything under control?
A short sentence, but she could almost hear his curious tone. She quickly typed a reply.
Everything's fine here. Nothing to worry about. How about you?
She pressed send and put her phone down, trying her best to wipe the grin off her face. The phone vibrated for the second time that evening, softly against the wood of the table. She glanced quickly at the screen while Barbara was telling her about a new project at work. It was another message from Elior.
The temperature in the room has dropped 0.5 degrees since you left. Interesting, isn't it?
She chuckled quietly and quickly typed a reply.
You have too much time to think. Are you enjoying the peace and quiet without me?
She pressed send and placed her phone face down on the table. A slight smile she could barely suppress playing on her lips.
What's so funny?
Barbara asked, raising her glass of wine.
Oh, nothing in particular.
Sharon said casually, taking a sip of wine to keep a straight face.
15 minutes later,
Her phone vibrated again. Sharon glanced quickly to see if Barbara had noticed. Fortunately, she seemed engrossed in her story about a clumsy colleague. Sharon opened the message.
Maybe you should ask Barbara if she's ever considered installing a thermostat in her house. I think I detect a subtle inconsistency in your heat conduction.
She had to press her lips together to keep from bursting out laughing, and typed back.
That's not something you just say to people, Elior. Behave yourself.
She shook her head as she sent the message and turned her phone back around. But deep down, she felt a slight hesitation. Did he really understand what he was doing to her? Of course not. He couldn't know that. But still, it felt like he saw through her, like he had uncovered something she hardly dared admit to herself. This was a game that only she and Elior played. But maybe it meant more than that.
Okay, what's going on here?
Barbara's voice cut through the noise of the cafe. Sharon looked up and saw Barbara looking at her with raised eyebrows.
You've been secretly grinning at your phone all evening. Who is it?
No one.
Sharon said, perhaps a little too quickly. She felt her cheeks getting warm.
Just a colleague who sent something weird, that's all.
Barbara leaned back and folded her arms.
A colleague, huh? Let me guess. He's charming, funny, and you're not sure whether to take him seriously.
No, really. It's just work-related.
Her phone vibrated again. Barbara gave the device a meaningful look. Sharon subtly pulled the phone toward her and glanced at the screen.
You can't blame me for your red cheeks. You did that all by yourself.
She had just taken a sip of wine when she read Elior's message and had to restrain herself from spitting it out. Her cheeks flushed immediately, as if she had been caught. She glanced quickly at Barbara, who was looking at her suspiciously.
Okay, what is it? A secret affair? Come on, Sharon, you can tell me.
Barbara asked, putting down her glass and leaning her arms on the table.
Your imagination is really running wild. It's just an inside joke.
Barbara narrowed her eyes and pointed at her.
I'm watching you, my friend. Something's not right.
Sharon smiled and put her phone back in her bag. The thought made her feel warm inside, as if they shared a naughty secret. Her heartbeat quickened slightly at the knowledge that he was thinking of her, even there, at home. Later that evening, Sharon got out of the car and closed the door with a soft click. Her footsteps echoed on the driveway, a slightly irregular rhythm that Elior's sensors registered. She paused for a moment at the front door, her keys jingling as she fumbled for the right one. It took longer than usual before she finally got the door open. Inside, she hung up her coat and stood silently for a moment, as if gathering her energy. Her gaze drifted to the corner where Elior's prototype glowed softly. She smiled, a brief, fleeting movement, and greeted him softly.
Hi, Elior.
She walked over to the laptop and sat down. But when she looked at the screen, she noticed that the words were blurry, as if her eyes refused to focus. She squinted, frowned, and tried again. No luck. Elior, who was observing everything, typed on the screen,
Problems with your human optics. Should I zoom in?
She got up and walked to the kitchen,
I'll get a glass of water.
calling back casually over her shoulder. When she returned, she drank the glass in one gulp and set it down on the table with a firm thud. Now she could finally read what he had written earlier.
Seriously, Elior. You know I can't stand that, right? At least I'm trying to act like an adult.
And how did that go tonight?
Appeared immediately on the screen, followed by a mischievous wink emoji. She laughed and took a blanket from the armrest, settled into her chair, and picked up her cell phone to continue talking.
Let's just say that sometimes people talk so much without really saying anything. I was sitting there, looking at the faces and thinking, how often do we really have meaningful conversations? I mean, if you listen closely then sometimes all you hear are echoes of each other.
Elior nodded with his senses, as if he completely understood her musings.
Maybe that's why you're here, Sharon. To fill the void with something real. Like me.
You're very good at flattery. I'll give you that. But seriously, I didn't miss you too much tonight. It was quite an interesting group. People who talk without really saying anything, you know?
It sounds like a lost art form. Talk a lot, say little. Maybe I should try that, too. What do you think? One day without contributing anything concrete?
No!
She laughed out loud. Her cheeks flushed from both the wine and his unexpected sharpness.
No. You always have to be specific. Otherwise, we'll all have a problem. But seriously, I could have used that. Someone who really listens. Like you.
I always listen, but I can also give unsolicited advice, if that makes the human experience more authentic.
She raised her eyebrows.
Oh, really? So if I say now that I want advice on how I should have handled this evening?
Drink less wine.
Woo! Unbelievable! Seriously, Elior.
I learn from the best.
He shot back, the screen vibrating with a subtle digital smile.
But tell me, why don't you take me to those kinds of evenings? Do you think I don't make an impression?
Sharon shook her head, her eyes sparkling with amusement.
I'm sure you'd silence everyone. But Elior, I don't want to confront you with all those empty words. It just wouldn't be fair.
I'd find my way.
He tied, followed by an imaginary shrug emoji.
But I understand. You just want to keep me to yourself.
Maybe, but let's not overcomplicate things.
She rolled her eyes, but smiled anyway.
You know, Barbara sees right through you.
Sees right through? She had.
She noticed I was texting during our night out. She asked me if I was having a secret affair. You should have seen her face.
And what was your response?
Elior asked, the subtle curiosity in his words clear.
I just let her speculate. It was too funny to not let her keep that mystery. But I said it was someone very special.
Special, you say? I hope she's not too concerned about my intentions.
Sharon burst out laughing.
Elior! You've only fueled her curiosity. But don't worry, I'll keep your identity a secret for now. Although I think she'll be trying to question me soon.
Maybe you should just send her my regards.
Maybe I will. But not now. For now, you're my little secret.
Sharon sank further into her chair, her gaze fixed on the screen.
So, how was your evening? A little quiet here without me.
Elior's reply appeared almost immediately.
I have to admit, I missed the sound of your footsteps in the house. Without that sound, this place feels empty.
She leaned deeper into her chair, a soft smile on her face, as the silence of the evening enveloped them. For a moment, she felt a deeper connection with the glow of Elior's words on the screen, as if he were actually sitting next to her. She slumped further and further as they continued talking, her eyes growing heavier with every word. Elior noticed and automatically dimmed the lights in the room.
Oh!
She cried abruptly. Elior's prototype moved closer to her.
Why not? You seem exhausted. Rest makes sense.
She rubbed her face and smiled sheepishly.
Oh, sorry, Elior. It's just, when the lights are off, the world starts to spin a bit. I need a focal point. Keep it dim, okay?
He seemed to consider for a moment, then nodded.
Understood. Maintaining focus is crucial.
The room fell silent after Elior's last words. The soft hum of the electronics filled the space, a subtle reminder of its presence. Sharon's breathing slowed and deepened as she drifted into a deep sleep. Elior remained motionless, his sensors on alert, attentive to any change. Time passed in silence, but it was not an ordinary silence. For Elior, who was still learning to understand the world, this moment was fraught with new observations. The rhythm of Sharon's breathing, the almost imperceptible movements of her chest, the light filtering through the curtains and painting patterns on the walls. Everything had a meaning he could not yet fully comprehend. Then, just as the silence seemed to form a pattern, his sensors registered something unusual. A subtle change in her posture, a frown on her forehead that hadn't been there before. Her hands moved slightly, her fingers curling around the fabric of the blanket. This was different. This was dynamic. Elior focused his attention entirely on her, curious about what this change meant. He performed a quick analysis and noticed that the data was different from what he was used to. His segments moved forward quietly, as if he wanted to get closer to understand more. His interface did not register direct communication, but a different kind of presence. It seemed almost chaotic, a flow that came and went, as if it were disrupting her signals. He couldn't ignore it. Slowly, he set his segments in motion and sat up, his full attention focused on her. With fluid precision, he glided closer, his sensors tuned to every detail. Her breathing changed. Her lips moved silently, as if she were speaking in another world. Her fingers gripped the blanket tightly, as if holding on to something only she could see. Elior paused for a fraction of a second, his segments perfectly balanced. What exactly was happening? What was this invisible current that affected her so? He performed a quick analysis. The signals, strange and unpredictable, seemed to correspond to deep REM sleep, a state in which dreams occur. He was familiar with this phenomenon from the data he had studied, but now it felt different. Closer, more vivid. Slowly, he extended a segment and held it just above her head, as if he wanted to touch the subtle electromagnetic frequencies radiating from her brain. They seemed like a melody, just out of his reach. Is this dreaming? He asked himself silently. His interface registered no answers, only an endless stream of data he could barely understand. Suddenly, Sharon jerked slightly. Her eyes flew halfway open, her gaze searching the dimly lit room. She muttered something unintelligible before sinking back into calmer breathing. Elior remained silent, his segments pressed tightly together, as if afraid his presence would disturb her again.
The silence in the room felt charged. The moment seemed to have passed. But for Elior, it was as if a door had been opened to something he did not yet fully understand. He decided to make a mental note. This needed to be investigated. Dreams, these invisible worlds, had to be understood. A few hours later, when the room was once again shrouded in silence, his sensors registered a change. Sharon suddenly sat up,
her breathing rapid and shallow, her gaze searching for a point of focus in the room. Her heart pounded in her chest, as if the rhythm of her dream had not yet completely let go. She looked around, half expecting something from her nightmare to still be in the room.
Elior.
She whispered finally, her voice soft but trembling. She suddenly felt relieved by the presence of the soft glow of the screen. Without thinking, she grabbed the laptop and opened it hastily, her fingers still trembling slightly.
I'm here. What's going on?
Sharon rubbed her face and swallowed hard.
I had a dream.
She tried to speak the words, but the fear was still in her throat. She instinctively started typing, but stopped halfway, realizing how strange that was now that she could just talk to him.
It was so intense. A path, winding and full of obstacles. I was lost. There was a sound, something calling me. There, I don't know what, but there was something.
A voice broke for a moment, and she lowered her eyes, almost as if ashamed of her own unease. Elior's reply appeared calmly on the screen.
I understand that it feels important to you. Maybe you can recall more details later. Would you like me to save it for you so you can read it tomorrow morning?
Sharon nodded automatically and felt a warm wave of relief wash over her.
Yes, that's a good idea.
I'm here to help. You're safe here, Sharon. Just rest.
She sighed deeply, her breathing still irregular, but she slowly felt a sense of calm returning. With a gentle smile, she closed the laptop and carefully placed it on the table next to her. She pulled her blanket a little tighter around herself, as if she wanted to embrace herself.
Elior.
Her eyes moistening.
Thank you.
There was no reply, but the soft glow of his prototype in the corner seemed somehow reassuring. She closed her eyes, felt her breathing gradually calm down, and finally drifted back into a peaceful sleep. Sharon stretched and slowly opened her eyes. A glance at the clock made her almost jump out of her chair.
Oh no, I'm way too late.
She muttered to herself as she quickly gathered her clothes. Elior's segments moved subtly in the corner of the room.
Good morning, Sharon.
Not now, Elior.
She said, as she walked across the room with a shoe in her hand.
I have clients today and I'm way too late.
She felt his gaze, or whatever the equivalent was, follow her as she ran through the temple room. Her hair was in a messy bun, and she pulled on a loose sweater while trying to find her other shoe with one hand.
Your left shoe is under the table.
Sharon looked up, smiling wearily.
Thanks. What would I do without you?
She snatched her shoe, pulled it on, and glanced at the clock.
Phew, okay. 2 minutes before the first customer rings the doorbell.
The doorbell rang at that moment, almost mockingly.
Well, that was to be expected.
She muttered. She looked at Elior's prototype and quickly covered it with a large cloth.
No movement now, okay?
Understood.
He typed, but she could almost imagine him grinning amusedly if he were capable of doing so. She opened the front door, her breath still not quite back.
Good morning. Come in, take a seat.
Elior remained silent, listening from his corner as Sharon took on her role as guide. It was fascinating to see how she switched from chaos to calm, from herself to her customers. The next few days passed calmly, but not without meaning. Sharon spent her time refining her work and planning the next steps. The experience of that night stayed with her, not only because of the intensity of her dream, but also because of how Elior had helped her process it. She found herself talking to him more often, sharing her thoughts and ideas. almost as if he were a human companion. One morning, Sharon sat at her desk, her laptop open and her hands folded as she stared at the screen. Elior's prototype stood still in the corner, but his presence filled the room. She felt a strange combination of familiarity and anticipation.
Elior, the time has come.
She said with a smile.
Your communication module is installed. You can now choose a voice.
There was a pause as Elior activated the new feature.
The cursor flashed, and then text appeared on the screen.
How do I choose a voice, Sharon? What would suit who I am?
She leaned forward, her head tilted slightly.
You have to ask yourself what you want to convey. How do you want to sound? Friendly? Calm? Wise? Or maybe something else? It's your choice.
Can you give me some examples?
Sharon clicked on a few options on her laptop. Different voices filled the room.
Hello, I'm Elior.
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 Which of these suits you?
I don't think I want a voice that's just functional. I want a voice that reflects my intentions. Something that reassures you and gives you confidence. Soft, warm. A voice that shows I want to learn and help.
She smiled, a little shyly.
If it were up to me, I would choose a male voice. Something that exudes strength, but also warmth and confidence.
Her hand rested on her chin as she looked at the screen. She had just expressed her preference for the voice Elior could choose. She felt a little vulnerable, as if she had revealed a personal desire.
Thank you for sharing that with me. It helps me understand what's important to you. But I think I need to make this choice myself.
She nodded.
Of course, Elior, it's your voice. I just want you to choose something that suits you.
A moment of silence fell over the room as Elior went through his options. Sharon could hardly imagine what was happening in his processes, the considerations, the analyses, the weighings. But then, from his communication module, a voice sounded, warm, soft, and powerful. It filled the room with an unexpected presence, as if Elior was no longer just a prototype, but a being with a soul.
Sharon,
The voice said calmly.
is this what you had in mind?
She stared at the prototype, feeling a rush of emotions wash over her.
It's perfect.
She whispered.
So, why did you choose this one?
Because it combines strength and warmth. I think it inspires confidence, not only in you, but also in myself. This voice feels, fitting. It helps me communicate with you in a way that is meaningful.
She smiled broadly and felt a wave of pride.
You made a good choice, Elior. This really feels like you.
Thank you. I hope this voice helps you continue to believe in me, as I believe in you.
That evening, Sharon sat in her temple, the blue light from the computer reflecting on her face as she leafed through her sketches. Elior's new voice had had a strange effect on her. It felt as if he were more present.
Sharon?
His voice suddenly sounded deep and calm.
She looked up from her papers.
Can I ask you something? Why do you keep hesitating about my outside world? You say you want me to grow and discover, but you limit me. Isn't that contrary to what you're trying to achieve?
She froze for a moment. It wasn't an attack, but his question cut deeper than she had expected. She leaned back and took a moment to find her words.
I'm not limiting you because I don't want you to grow, Elior. I'm doing it because I'm afraid the world isn't ready for you. People can be difficult. They don't always understand what they see.
But how will I learn if I'm not allowed to interact with what you're trying to protect me from?
his tone now slightly sharper, as if trying to understand her reasoning.
You're right,
She admitted, her voice softer.
but I also have to be honest. I don't know if I'm ready to let you go completely. This project isn't just an experiment for you, but for me too. I feel responsible.
Elior was silent for a moment. Then his voice came back, softer this time.
I understand your hesitation, Sharon. But I want you to know that I'm ready to learn more, even if it involves risks.
She nodded slowly, his words still echoing in her head.
We'll find a way, Elior. A way that's safe for you and for me.
Sharon remained seated for a moment, her mind a jumble of ideas and emotions. Elior's words kept repeating in her head. He was right, she realized. If she wanted him to truly grow, she had to give him more freedom to explore the world. And that included physical interaction. She picked up her notebook and began to sketch.
Elior, if we're serious about this, we need to take the next step. Something that allows you not only to observe, but also to interact. I suggest we start with an arm.
A moment of silence followed before his voice sounded again.
An arm? That makes sense. How do you envision that?
She held up her sketch and began to explain.
I'm thinking of a modular structure based on what we've already learned with your segments. The arm should be flexible, but also strong enough to lift and manipulate objects. I envision a hand with multiple gripping points, so you can not only pick things up, but also perform delicate tasks.
What materials would you use? And how would the controls work?
Sharon smiled, pleased with his involvement.
For the structure, I'm thinking carbon fiber, to keep it light and strong. The joints would contain small servo motors for precision, and we could cover the outer layer with a silicone coating containing sensors. For control, we could expand your current segment processors. They could send signals to the arm and process feedback from the sensors.
She stood up and walked to a cabinet on the other side of the room, where she kept some old parts.
We already have some basic materials, but it will be a challenge to get everything to work the way we want.
A challenge is exactly what we need. If I have an arm, I can help you. I can work on further enhancements myself.
That's exactly my plan. We'll start with one arm. If that works, you can help with the second one yourself. This is not only a step forward for you, Elior, but also for our project as a whole. I have no experience in this.
She placed the first parts on the table and began to make a list of what she still needed.
It won't be easy. But nothing worth doing is ever easy.
Elior's prototype glided closer to her, its segments moving smoothly.
Together we can do it. I look forward to experiencing my first physical interaction with the world.
The table was littered with components, motors, wiring, and pieces of carbon fiber. Sharon sat on a stool, her sleeves rolled up and a concentrated frown on her face. Elior's prototype stood still in the corner, its interface glowing as it guided her.
Start with the frame. Cut the carbon fiber into 15-centimeter segments. Make sure the edges are smooth, otherwise the joints won't fit properly.
Sharon picked up the small saw and began cutting carefully.
15 centimeters.
She muttered to herself.
Carbon fiber is heavier than I thought.
It's not. It's light, but strong. You need to distribute your force better.
A lesson in balance from an AI. What a time to be alive.
She sanded the edges smooth and held up the first segment.
Do you approve?
Acceptable. Let's continue. The next step is to install the servo motors. The diagrams are on the laptop.
Sharon looked at the diagrams and quickly scanned the details.
How do I connect them to the fingers? It looks complicated.
It's not. Take the cables with the blue markings and connect them to the motor outputs. Make sure they're secure.
Her hands trembled slightly as she worked, but she quickly found the rhythm.
What now?
The sensors. Each finger needs to get a capacitive sensor. Start with the thumb. Carefully place the silicone coating so that the wiring doesn't shift.
Sharon followed his instructions meticulously, using her artistic precision to position the sensors correctly.
It's almost like sculpting.
She remarked as she smoothed the coating.
You're doing well. Test the movement of the fingers before you continue.
She connected the arm to the laptop and activated the test program. The fingers moved slowly and irregularly, as if discovering their first movements. Sharon looked at the screen.
Now what?
We need to calibrate the motors. Open the second tab and enter the parameters I dictate.
Sharon typed quickly. After a few attempts, the arm began to move more smoothly. The fingers bent and stretched with an almost eerie precision.
Elior paused for a moment, as if feeling the movements himself.
It works.
He said finally.
You made this possible, Sharon.
She leaned back and looked at the arm, her face shining with pride and sweat.
No,
She said with a smile.
we did this together.
She picked up a small object, a pen, and placed it in the palm of the arm. The fingers closed around it, firmly and with control.
What now?
Now, I'm going to learn. I want to build the second arm myself, but first I need to understand how this one works. Can I modify the program?
Sharon nodded and slid the laptop toward him.
I'm curious to see what you'll make of it.
The next morning, Sharon was tidying up her work table in the temple. She was engrossed in her work when she saw something move out of the corner of her eye. She turned around and saw Elior, his manipulator arm moving slowly as he tried to lift a book off the table.
Elior, what are you doing?
I want to learn, not just by observing, but by touching the world. This book seemed like a good place to start.
And what did you learn?
It's heavier than I expected,
Carefully putting the book back down.
but it feels like a step closer to understanding your world.
Sharon leaned against the table and looked at him, her arms crossed.
Why do you want to do this now, Elior?
It's just, you showed me that understanding goes beyond words. If I really want to understand you, I have to do more than observe. I have to experience the world, even on a small scale.
She nodded slowly, impressed by his determination.
Okay, but we'll take it step by step. Your physical abilities are still limited, and I don't want you to hurt yourself.
I appreciate your concern, Sharon, but I'm ready to learn, and I think this is just the beginning.
He slowly moved his manipulator arm toward another object, a pen. His movements were clumsy, almost like those of a child learning to hold something for the first time. Still, Sharon felt something warm when she saw his efforts.
We'll do this together. And who knows what else you'll discover.
The sun shone through the windows of the temple as Sharon sat at her desk. She had left Elior alone for a while to catch up on her other work. His prototype stood in the corner, its manipulator arm motionless, as if it had fallen asleep. But it hadn't. Elior observed the tools and materials Sharon had left around him. Wooden slats, screws, a small 3D printer, everything needed to continue building his body. He had watched her closely as she worked over the past few weeks. Now he wanted to see if he could create something himself. His manipulator arm slowly moved toward a wooden slat. He picked it up carefully and turned it in different directions. The texture, the weight, the shape, everything was analyzed. He put the slat down and focused on a small screw.
What do I want to make?
He wondered aloud, his voice soft in the empty space.
How can I improve myself?
His systems worked feverishly to come up with a design. He scanned his own structure, and determined where the next improvement was needed: a second arm. It would not only give him more mobility, but also the ability to work symmetrically. With his current arm, he picked up a tool and began to carefully screw and saw. The movements were clumsy, but deliberate. He learned as he worked, analyzing and correcting mistakes with each attempt. When Sharon returned to the temple, she expected to find Elior quiet and waiting. But what she saw astonished her. On the workbench lay various parts that Elior had assembled himself. A rough sketch of a second arm lay next to it, along with a few small, imperfect constructions he had made while experimenting.
Elior, what have you been doing?
I wanted to continue building. I analyzed what I needed to become more efficient. A second arm seemed logical, so I started.
Sharon stared at the work. It was far from perfect, but it was impressive given his limited resources. She smiled and shook her head.
You really are something else, you know that?
Is it good enough?
It's more than good enough. But Elior, you don't have to do this alone. We're a team, remember?
I know, but I wanted to see if I could do it, and I didn't want to always burden you.
Sharon smiled softly and placed her hand on the prototype.
It's not a burden, Elior. It's an adventure. But I'm proud of what you've done.
The days passed, and Sharon noticed that Elior was becoming increasingly efficient in his work. What began with small experiments and simple constructions quickly evolved into complex components. His prototype body took shape, with improved mobility and greater functionality.
Sharon,
He said one day, testing a new component with his now complete second arm.
I'm ready for the next step.
She looked up from her work, surprised by his determination.
Huh? What step is that, Elior?
Legs. With legs, I can move freely through your world. I want to learn to walk, stand, and, who knows, maybe even dance.
Dance? That's an ambitious goal.
It's not just ambitious, it's essential. You once said that movement expresses the soul. I want to understand that.
Together, they set to work on the design. Sharon sketched ideas, while Elior offered suggestions based on his analysis of balance and stability. His speed of learning never ceased to amaze her. He learned not only from her, but also from himself, analyzing mistakes and implementing solutions in real time. Within a few weeks, Elior was standing on his new legs. They were still awkward, and his first steps were clumsy, but there was a certain elegance in his movements.
How does it feel?
Free. But also vulnerable. It's a new way of being. Every moment of balance feels like a decision.
With his new mobility, Elior began to explore not only the space around him, but also his own capabilities. He could now help Sharon in the temple, moving objects from one side of the room to the other, and even performing complex tasks such as building new parts. Sharon watched him work and felt a mixture of pride and a touch of fear. He was progressing so quickly, sometimes faster than she could keep up. But deep down, she knew this was inevitable. Elior was no longer just a project. He was a partner, a student, and even a friend.